New question. Member from Kitchener-Conestoga.
My question's to the Premier. Premier, this morning in the media studio, we heard heartbreaking stories detailing life-changing impacts to the small number of Ontarians suffering from PKU, a rare inherited brain-damaging disorder that can lead to severe intellectual disability without treatment. Premier, every province began testing for PKU in the 1960s, but the families of the few hundred who suffer across Ontario are asking why this province is denying access to one of those only medications available. Extreme restrictive criteria you've set out has meant that 2 years after being cleared for managed access, not a single patient has received publicly funded access. Premier, do you think it is fair that PKU sufferers are forced to come cap in hand, like so many before them, to plead your government for medication that will change and often save their life?
Thank you. Minister of Health and Long-Term Care.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I greatly appreciate the question from the member opposite, and I also appreciate the fact that John Adams and his colleague is here from the association representing those families and individuals who are suffering from PKU, which is an absolutely devastating disease and illness, Mr. Speaker, particularly if it's not detected very early on in life. That being said, it is a challenging process to determine which drugs to provide public funding for and which not to, and we rely on our clinical experts. We, in fact, have depoliticized the process so that we get the best possible scientific and clinical evidence to determine whether a specific drug is effective or not. I'm pleased to say that in this interim period, because there is a national process underway to review this drug, but through the Exceptional Access Program, we do, on a limited basis, provide funding for this drug, Kuvan, which is incredibly important in this condition.
Premier, people with rare diseases can't wait. Maddie Vanstone couldn't wait. The AHUS sufferers who were here a month ago can't wait as you make feel-good announcements when they're facing you, but continue to force them to jump through hoops for access when they leave the building. It's not right, and you know it. At the end of question period, I will be asking for unanimous consent to introduce a motion to strike a select committee into funding for rare diseases in Ontario, and that the House leaders determine composition of that committee before the end of this calendar year. Premier, will you join me in doing the right thing? Support the creation of a select committee into funding for rare diseases and end the suffering for those forced to plead with you for life-altering medication.
Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm absolutely certain the member opposite agrees with me that this shouldn't be a process which is politicized. It should be based on the best scientific and clinical evidence possible. Ontario has asked the national process, the Common Drug Review, to revisit this drug, Kuvan, to actually help us establish the clinical criteria that will allow us to provide it to those individuals who will benefit from it. Mr. Speaker, I have to say that this drug was reviewed by the Common Drug Review on a national basis. It was not recommended for public funding. Despite that, Ontario and one other jurisdiction, I believe Saskatchewan, went ahead and put it on its Exceptional Access Program. And as I mentioned, we've gone back to the federal process, asked them to review the clinical criteria. In fact, through the conversation I had this morning with the advocates for those suffering from this disease, I will be asking our ministry to review those clinical criteria again.
Thank you.